Everyone. Welcome to the weekly meeting. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Zoar Morales. I'm a realtor out in Hawaii. Went through this program back in 2021. Today we'll be practicing some forward conversations. We'll be breaking out into groups of 2 or 3 and going through that type of drill to practice having conversations with people. You can see that it's not that difficult to just talk about life. Let me see. Yeah, just talk about life and just catch up with people. You can pretend we're gonna be pretending that the other person is your friend that you haven't talked to in a while, and just catching up with them. For those of you that don't know what Ford is, so it's an acronym, FORD, and it's family, occupation, recreation, dreams. Hey, David,
Hey, how's it going, man?
good, are you?
Good.
Do you have some word to pass to the group, or are you just chiming in?
No, I just want to be here for the first few minutes, just see if anyone has questions for me. I think we were not on last month, if I recall correctly, with Tasha being sick. So just wanted to pop on real quick, see if anyone has questions about what's going on in the marketplace currently or anything that we can help with before you run the rest of the meeting.
Okay, sweet. Does
Cool.
anyone have any general questions about transitioning out of the military, about getting into real estate, about the NAR changes that continue to change?
The NIR one, I think, is a big one we can discuss again for a few minutes. Anyone have specific questions on that? If not, I'll just dive into a little bit of an overview. Justin, you got any? I know you're licensed and getting going right now.
No, I think I just have to understand it well enough to where I can start explaining it to clients um, from that vantage point. I mean, I understand the general concept of what's going on, but as far as I see it, it doesn't seem like much has changed except for uh, representing a buyer. You have to get that in writing.
Yeah, so there's going to be a few things going on. I will say there's always people out there that want to cause a stir, right? If you guys sit on social media for any point in time, you'll notice. I think you're smart enough, you can point out posts that are made just to get a bunch of comments and a bunch of buzz and people responding and stir the pot versus comments that are truly made to try to provide some value, right? So there's a lot going on with everything right now. There's a lot of agents that are still not aware of what's going on, still need to go through a lot of training. EXP's been doing a good job on training folks at all the state contracts meetings and various meetings that they have, and that they've made available for agents. The basics for the EXP side are going to be one in all states except Colorado, I believe it is, for the form. We have and have had this now for about 2 months, a buyer broker agreement for single properties, right? Because the requirement come next month is going to be that before you show a property, you can set people up on searches, you can do all that stuff without a buyer broker. But before you open a door to show a property and actually do showing services, you have to have an agreement in place that identifies how you're getting paid, what your responsibilities are, all that type of stuff. Now, the reality is there's a lot of buyers out there that as you're first starting to work with them are not going to want to sign a full exclusive with you for every single home under the sun in your county, having never really dealt with you, right? And so EXP's solution to that is that's fine. We have a requirement to meet. We'll meet that requirement. Let's get our foot in the door with clients, be able to show them the service that we're willing to provide in the hopes of winning them over as a long-term client. So to do that, we have a single property form. You want to see this house, sign this one form. All it does is it commits you to, if we place an offer on this house, I'm your agent representing you for this one home, right? That gets rid of the objection of, well, I don't know you well enough to sign up with you long-term for every single home within this county. I have no experience with you yet. What it will also do, though, is it will make it so that all agents are on the same footing and have to do this. So any agent that's, with a local association to get MLS access that then is part of NAR is all part of the overall NAR proposed settlement, which means that they all have to have these signed come next month, right? Show homes. I will tell you from our experience in the industry, doing this between me and Tasha, 16 years now total, I think, for the two of us combined, there are going to be agents out there that do not follow the rules. plain and simple, to try to get business, right? What you have to be able to do is have the conversation with clients about how them being willing to show homes without signing a form actually breaks realtor code of ethics and should make them question whether or not they should be working with them on anything. Because if they're willing to break that rule at the get-go and not have the conversation needed to abide by the rules to get them in a house to try to get their business, what other things are they going to break? Whatever other trust are they going to break to get a deal done? Right? There's a lot of things, quite frankly, unfortunately, as a realtor, that you can hide from your clients throughout a deal if you have no ethics. If your only goal is to get the deal across the finish line and not to actually protect your clients. There's a ton of internal communication that you could do, or you could just gloss over the inspection and be like, yep, those $20,000 of roof repairs, and the AC that's going to need 15 grand right now. I know you only got 2 grand in the bank, but just buy the house. Don't worry about it. There's a ton of that type of activity that can happen. Now, it should not be happening from any of you, right? I don't expect any of you to be doing that, but there are agents in our field that will do that. So be prepped for those conversations. The second thing that's going to be happening in the post that I saw yesterday, which was, again, to try to create this shark-infested water feeding frenzy, and quite frankly, from the individuals that posted it to try to recruit to their brokerage, was, well, EXP is no longer allowing you to pay a buyer's agency fee. And that's true. A, you've never paid it. It has come through the brokerage, but the money is not yours until it gets paid to you by the brokerage, right? You as an agent cannot directly be paid commission without it going through a broker. State law in all the states, right? So first, it was already required to go through the brokerage. Now, traditionally, how stuff's been done the last 20 something years since buyer agency became a thing is the seller paid the listing broker the totality of the commission fee. And then the listing broker, per the listing agreement with the seller, said, out of that fee, we're splitting X amount off to the buyer's agent through their brokerage. That's how it's been done for the last 20 something years. That's the exact route that the DOJ took exception with and didn't like. Right or wrong, and I'm not here to debate whether or not the DOJ is correct and all the things they're doing are correct and everything else. I have a differing opinion on that, but it is what it is at this point, right? So the approach that EXP is taking is going, okay, great, we get it. The proposed settlement is that you can't put commission into the MLS come August, right? It's going to get deleted, which means we need to modify listing agreements to identify how this commission is being shared. Technically, per the proposed settlement, you can still do the payments the exact same way, right? It can still go through the listing broker to the buyer's broker, technically. Now, the DOJ has not weighed in yet. We don't know where they're going to stand on it, but we do know that their full public statement was that they believe that listing commission and buyer broker commission should be fully decoupled and not depend on each other at all. So if you want to read into the full intent of what the DOJ is trying to do, what EXP did was they said, we're going to get ahead of it. The seller is going to get to decide how much they're agreeing to pay the listing brokerage. Separately, they will decide how much they want to pay a buyer's agent if they bring a client, and the seller will pay that money directly to the buyer's brokerage. It will not funnel through EXP. So technically, while what the person posted on Facebook was correct, EXP won't be paying cooperating broker fees anymore. It's just a question of which way the money is being routed. Really doesn't change the mechanism. It just changes how it flows through. You're still going to have the same conversations. You may have some sellers that don't want to pay the buyer brokerage fee at all. Educate them on what you've seen, on what the historical norms are. Let them make an informed decision. If that's what they choose to do, that's fine. Most likely, any buyers that do walk through the door with an agent, their agent's going to request compensation as part of the offer, which again, used to not be allowed. In most states, you cannot do that. It was considered a violation of Sherman antitrust laws to include your commission as part of the offer. Now that's the route apparently that the DOJ wants us to go through. So that's basically the summary on it. Make sure you're educated on that. Again, all the states, for those that are licensed, have contracts classes typically on a weekly basis. Make sure you're at those. They're very informative and helpful. EXP has their websites out there for the buyer broker toolkit. They've got a lot of FAQs out there. And in the different state groups on Workplace, they're releasing a bunch of different forms that are important for this type of aspect. So they're associated with it as far as whether you have to do a listing modification or how to actually request that compensation come August when you're showing a buyer. Because there's the one piece, which is getting your buyer to sign a buyer broker. There's another thing, which is as part of your offer or prior to your offer, submitting a document that identifies what your compensation will be from the seller side to EXP as your brokerage. And then obviously it flows to you. So with that, who's got questions on that? It's the new norm for a lot of us. It's a change for you guys just coming into the business now. It's just going to be the normal, right? This will be the only way that you guys, for the most part, will operate because it's the new thing going forward. So to some degree, you're actually at an advantage because you never exercised contracts and executed contracts the old way. So there's no relearning things. For us that have been doing this for many years, it's a lot of relearning. We've been doing buyer brokers for a long time, but the commission has always just been whatever the commission is on the MLS. So I know you guys got to have some questions on that. I'm happy to answer any of them. Don't be afraid to speak up. And again, it's not commander's call. Like, I do actually want questions and to be able to help you guys.
David, what's the latest on the like the NAR writing a letter to the Department of Veteran Affairs about how that's going to work for VA buyers?
Yeah, so I mean, VA already came out with a circular that said for the present, until they actually modify the rule, that it's considered customary now come August when this goes into place for buyers to pay compensation, therefore it'll be allowed. And so VA buyers will actually be allowed to pay compensation going forward. Now, again, do they have the money? That's another question, right? VA buyers aren't necessarily buying a zero down, obviously, because they have to. Sometimes they do have the money. It makes sense when you run the numbers, especially when we're in really low interest rate environments. Why are you going to put money down on the house when you don't have to and you can keep the money back, right? And we've obviously earned that through service. We have to educate sellers a lot of times on that. But the reality is that given that this has been wrapped into the purchase price for so long, most buyers typically aren't going to want to pay this independently. They're going to want to have it wrapped into the loan. So even if it's not being offered, what we're seeing that's going to happen with a lot of buyers, they're just going to offer a higher amount with a commission being paid by the seller if it's not currently being offered. So that they can wrap it into their loan still, because currently lenders cannot wrap commission into the loan. That may change as well through federal funding loan programs, but that's how it stands today. All your appraisals that are out there today, appraisers have already been given directions that if the seller is not including commission as part of the sale price, that they need to make adjustments to the home value. Because all the previous homes had seller commission baked into them. Right. And so now if they're not including that, okay, great. You've got a house that was $800,000, 3% commission. That's 24 grand normal commission fee. Cool. That value of that house is now actually 776 from an appraiser's perspective. So it will have ramifications and ripple effects. I do think that there's a lot of unknowns. There's going to be unintended side effects coming out of this for the next year or so, probably, as people work through it. And associations will have to make adjustments to their docs. I mean, DOJ is already reviewing the California Association of Realtors buyer broker that they were going to release. They put a hold on releasing it last month, I think it was, because the DOJ identified that they wanted to see it and weren't necessarily happy with how it's written. So there's also a lot of push around on, well, the buyer brokers are not necessarily buyer friendly or consumer friendly from, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and a lot of those. EXP, from what I've seen, has gone above and beyond to make it more consumer friendly, easier to read, short documents. They're 1 to 2 page documents for most of them for these items. And most of them identify that the buyer can cancel out at any time as long as they're not currently under contract and owe no commission. So, I mean, from the realtor side, you may not love that. I will say most brokerages do not pursue a buyer, even if you had procuring cause. We've gone through it before. It's not that it's necessarily incredibly difficult to win a procuring cause case, but you start getting into, is that the PR that you want for yourself and for your brokerage is suing a buyer, even if they did the wrong thing. Like, we all deserve to be paid for our services, but you have to think about the PR optics as well, right? So even if they did the wrong thing, is it worth sacrificing your reputation going forward to then be known as the person that's going to sue a buyer that did them wrong and how many buyers will that cost you in the future, and what's that rep hit going to do to your business income and the number of people that you can serve. So most brokerages won't go after it anyways. You know, the buyer reps, realistically, they're good to have. Most buyers will abide by them. They don't always. Again, we've been doing them for many years. And we've had folks that we helped that then lied to us and told us that orders were canceled, yet they weren't, and they used our lender to close, and they just bought through the listing agent, the home that we showed them, right? It is what it is. Does it get frustrating? Yes. Did we sue them? No. Like, that's not the rep that we want, right? So even with the old buyer broker agreements that were 5 pages long in California and identified that you could sue the client and all that stuff, in most cases, you're not going to. So if you're not going to do it, why have it on the form? I think is the approach that EXP took. So they tried to take a more consumer-friendly approach, A, to stay out of the crosshairs of DOJ, I think, and B, to try to be seen from a PR perspective as being consumer-friendly so that we can help more folks. Cool. That answer that question, Zoar?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Cool. For the licensed folks, any questions that you guys have? I know for the unlicensed folks, like you guys are still working through getting your licenses. This is a lot with changes. I'm sure your books probably aren't even updated, you know, if they address this stuff. So, because it's, you know, again, more late breaking stuff. But for the people that have licenses, what questions do you guys have on how to implement, execute, and push forward on your business? Justin, Andrew, anything?
I can't think of anything yet, but I'm sure I'll have questions as I get further along here
Okay.
and start figuring out stuff. But I just want to get a couple transactions under my belt so I completely understand the ins and outs of how this works. And I think for those of us that are newly licensed or about to be licensed, I think it'll just be the norm moving forward for us. So we won't have
Yep.
known any different. So it should be pretty easy and straightforward for us.
Yeah, I think you guys are actually in a better position on this than agents. I will say you're definitely in a better position on this than agents that have been in this business 30 years. I can tell you most of the agents, most of the time when we get an agent on the phone and it's, oh, I've been doing this 20 years or I've been doing this 30 years, you know, you have a fun transaction coming your way. They tend to be outdated. They like to fax things still, all wet signatures, don't go to contracts classes, haven't gone to a contracts class in 10 or 15 years because they know all there is to know. So they haven't stayed up to date. Sometimes we get sent forms that are still the old forms from 5 or 10 years ago. And you have to correct them and be like, hey, this form's no longer valid, right? It's been superseded by this form on this date. Please use the new contract. So yeah, I think you guys are in a perfect position going through this right now. This is all you're really going to know, right? Which I think is better than knowing the old way and then having to adapt to the new way. So, you know, one of the old adages, right? The only constant in life, or one of the few constants in life, is change, right? This is just one of them. Agents aren't going to go away. AI is not replacing you guys. There's still a personal role and a relationship role in a real estate transaction, especially for something that is people's largest transaction typically in their lifetime, right? They want someone there that's going to be their guide to hold their hand to help them along the way. AI is also only so good because if you look at Chat GPT, I love it, but the quality of what comes out depends upon the prompts that you put in and the quality of what you can input, right? So if you don't know what you're doing on a real estate transaction already as a consumer, how are you going to know AI what to ask on what to do next? You're not, right? You need that person there that's voluntarily telling you along the way, here's what we're doing, and reacting to complex, you know, scenarios and possibly involving other people. So cool. Janessa, Nathan, Jackson, Corey, any questions? Al, Sydney, anyone else? Okay.
David or Zor, if you want to answer this,
Yeah.
what sites or I guess like resources do you use to get these news articles besides the stuff that we get through our Slack app?
Yeah. So remind me, are you licensed or are you still working on your license?
Working, I have my state exam scheduled August 28th.
Okay, cool. So a lot of what you'll see things come through on once you get your license and you join EXP is going to be EXP Workplace in your state group. You'll see a lot of stuff coming through there. Now, again, change being a constant, Workplace will go away next year. For you guys that are already EXP licensed now, have joined and didn't see that, Workplace will be gone from EXP and it'll be gone from every other company next year. Unfortunately, Facebook, Meta made the decision that they're shutting down Workplace in 2025. And so EXP is actively trying to figure out what's transition to next. They actually identified Slack as a potential candidate. I don't know that that's the right platform for what we're doing on Workplace, but it's one candidate that they're looking at. So that's one area. I would say get on some of the mailing lists. I pay for Inman. Inman's a lot of it can be like a tabloid for real estate, right? It's really clickbait for a lot of it. It's trying to get people to click and pay for the subscriptions and all that stuff. But there is some good data that comes out of there every now and then. That's helpful. You can get on the Housing Wire or Real Trends lists on the free side. I wouldn't necessarily pay on the paid side. I think Housing Wire paid is like $4,000 a year. Definitely wouldn't pay that fee. And just a reminder on any of this stuff, any paid option, always look at, especially as you're first starting your company, look if you have free options first, right? I know you guys all want leads. You want to close business. I'll give you a pro tip, at least from my experience, never sign up for Zillow. Just going to put it out there. Don't make that mistake. We've had a past team member make that mistake. Cost her 18 grand. She got like 3 leads, none of which even really resulted in conversations. So I don't know about you, but I'm not paying $6,000 a lead for people that aren't picking up. That doesn't work for me. So just be cautious on those. Everyone and their brother, like I've talked about before, is going to be coming for your money when it comes to this industry, right? Trying to sign you up on free stuff up front, which is actually a $500 setup fee. There's a lot of free options out there. Collaborate with folks on the channels, collaborate with our team agents, right? And ask them those same questions. So Sydney, for yours, like if those aren't good enough for you, the ones that I just gave to you off the top of my head, toss it in the Q&A channel and see if anyone responds, right? On Slack. There's no guarantee that our folks are actually going to respond, right? They're busy doing business and they don't even respond to all the other questions. We've put it out there so that other people can respond instead of it just being me and Tasha, which I think is valuable because different people have different experiences, right? But feel free to toss that out there. Any of those types of things that as you're looking to build your business, get news, all that stuff. It's a worthy question to ask because I'm sure if you had it, you asked it. I'm sure several other folks on this call had the same type of question. So, Zoar, what do you use outside of what I mentioned?
I was just going to say the state meetings for EXP, like your EXP state group, they have weekly meetings. So you just have to figure out what day that is and time and attend those. And they'll usually announce any kind of changes that are coming out. And then also your board of realtors, you'll probably get monthly or weekly updates from them. Maybe like day of when a change comes out, they'll put some kind of announcement out about how the guidance is going to affect you and all that stuff. So those are good resources, especially because they're state specific, because things are a lot different here in Hawaii than most of the United States.
Right.
And so where you are might be a little different than everywhere else. So that's probably the best source.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say too, whether you're licensed or unlicensed, I think you guys should have time on your calendar every single week as part of your internship program to be in EXP world to go to the state contract meeting. Doesn't matter if you don't have your license yet, you need to start getting up to speed now on what the contracts are. And typically they'll go over those. I know for the California one, Debbie Penny goes over different forums, different weeks, and she has to rotate through them. Obviously, there's too many forums out there to get through everything in a day by any means. So you have to go to several weeks worth of classes to actually understand the ins and outs of, let's say, the purchase agreement, right? Every state periodically releases updated forms. And so each of the state leads, the brokers will typically, when those forms come out, they'll discuss them in the forms class, talk about what they mean, what's changed, what you can or can't do still on the form. All those things are important so that you can best represent your clients. So I'll tell you, it amazes me to this day how many realtors we have that don't know what an escalation clause is. And we've been using it for 9 years now to get offers accepted. And we've had listing agents that have done a decent amount of business. Like, what's an escalate? What's this mean? How's this work? Right. So educate yourself on those types of tools that can help your clients. And what I will say is if you don't understand something, if you get a listing and you don't understand it, don't knock it just because you don't understand it. Right. We've had agents that are like, my seller doesn't want to entertain an escalation clause just because they don't understand what it is. That means your seller is willing to give up money right? The escalation clause can increase our client's purchase price based upon the other offers and make it go above like an eBay bidding type setup. That means you're telling me your client's voluntarily walking away from money. I don't believe that. Every seller I've ever met, even if they're trying to move quickly, it's, yeah, I need to move quickly, but I still want the highest price in the time frame that I'm looking to move. None of them are saying, yeah, I want to move in a week, and by the way, give me the lowest price possible on my house. I might even give it away. No one's coming to the table like that, right? So understand those things. And the reason that I say that is a good portion of your listing agents that won't present or don't like VA loan offers, it's because they don't understand the VA loan. Their understanding of it's from 20 years ago. They have not stayed updated, and therefore they hurt their seller and they hurt your buyer client because they're not willing to present the offer fairly. Right. So just as you get started out, if there's stuff that you guys don't understand, you have great resources between our Slack channel to ask questions, but also your state groups. And if you guys don't understand something, that you have 89,000 people around the world that you can reach through Workplace essentially to go ask questions of and get answers. And Tasha and I have been doing this a decent amount of time, done a lot of deals. Zoar's done a lot of deals. Neither one of us is the most experienced people in real estate. Neither one of us is the most successful in real estate. There are other people out there doing a whole heck of a lot more. And I love to have their inputs on things as well. So collaboration's the big piece for us and the big reason why we're at the company we're at. But cool. Yeah, so again, toss it in the Q&A if you want. Start going to the state contracts classes. Just add it to your calendar every week. It's something that all of you should be attending, your state meetings and your state contracts class as part of your internship. That way you can get up to speed, because we're not going to train you on those things. There's a reason we're at EXP. We have great leverage with essentially being able to run with the way our team is. We're essentially an independent brokerage. We're the size of a small indie brokerage, just riding on the EXP backbone. And we can operate in all 50 states because of that. And then we have experts in all 50 states that are already there to help provide guidance on all the contracts. So it's a beautiful setup. Use it to your advantage. You have folks that have been doing this for decades in most cases, that are not those realtors that don't stay up to date on things, right? They're your people that are actually up to date on every single form and collaborate with the legal team anytime a new form comes out to figure out what can and can't be done. So leverage that and use that to enhance your knowledge for you and your clients. Cool. All right. You guys got anything else for me? If not, I'm going to jump off and let Zoar run the meeting. Good to go? Thumbs up? Cool. Good to see all of you. Zoar, let me know if you need anything, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, David. See you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
So one random thing I was going to say that's kind of like a peripheral or a side benefit of these buyer broker agreements. So when I was first starting out, my mentor encouraged me to do them. I was hesitant to do it because it just felt kind of awkward. Like you meet someone, you're like just getting to know them, and you're like, hey, I want you to sign this document. And I actually never tried it until recently when it became mandatory. And so, but what I've learned is it helps you kind of screen out people that aren't super serious or super committed to the process. Because if they're like, oh yeah, I'm like shopping around realtors and I don't want to sign this right now, then it's like, all right, cool, I'm not going to waste my time on you. Have a great life. See you later. And then it also makes things easier for when, even if they are committed to working with you, when you get to signing the purchase agreement, because if it's like a first-time home buyer, which a lot of you, if you're working with military folks, a lot of them will be first-time home buyers. It takes away some of the pressure where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm about to digitally sign this document, and it's like the end of the world if I sign this thing. Like people like that's like a freak out moment for a lot of people, because they're like, oh my gosh, even though they went over all these documents with me, there's so many pages, I don't know what's in here. Maybe I need to read through all this myself. Maybe I need to hire an attorney to process this document for me. And like all that pressure can be avoided by having them sign that buyer broker agreement when you first meet them, and they sign it and they realize the world didn't explode. Life kept on going. You guys start shopping for homes. You build that trusting relationship with them. you show them that you're holding up to the things you talked about when you did that buyer broker agreement. Hey, this is our commitments to our documented handshake that I'm looking out for your best interest. I'm going to get you the best deal possible, blah, blah, blah. And then you start to demonstrate that as you go through the buying process. So it really isn't any kind of setback by having this form come about. If anything, it's a positive thing because it'll make your life easier. Sift out the people that are playing games and make it easier for your buyers to sign that purchase agreement when the time comes. But we're halfway through the hour, so we'll save the forward conversations for next week. Any questions for me before I go? Alrighty, I'll stop the recording and I'll stick around for a few more minutes in